You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Again, another episode of the Red Moon Podcast, live every single Tuesday night, right here on all your favorite social media networks. And I believe, yes, finally, we are on Rumble, live on Rumble, trying to stream to all the major video platforms out there. So please join us wherever you can. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host, Sean Sebastian, and
Mikrak Johansson.
What?
Mikrak Johansson.
Mikrak Johansson?
Mikrak.
The music's
Mikrak.
a little loud. I couldn't hear what he said.
No, Mikrak.
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 No, crack. Mikrak.
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 Crack. There we
Crack.
go. He got it.
I got
Mikrak.
it. All right, Mikrak Johansson?
Johansson.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
Jimmy Crack.
No.
Corn.
Mikrak.
That was good. Okay. Where'd you get that name at?
What name?
Is it just it's your name.
Mikrak.
You got a name.
Mikrak.
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 Oh, man.
Oh, God.
He speaks in nothing but crag.
He's an angry foreigner.
Yeah. Don't mess with him.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Where do I get any of these names?
System.
That one was 100% out of my brain
That
still.
was good.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That was improv last minute? You
Yeah.
just figured that out.
Mikrak.
Pulled that out of nowhere. Well, it's kind of like I want to just thank the Hollywood Foreign Press real quick for all the love that they've given Hollywood and wait, that doesn't exist anymore.
It's funny. It's funny how no one knew that.
Nobody.
And no one found out. It was still like
Robert
a day.
Downey Jr. knew it.
He was the only one.
He made a joke, but that was what's funny is he made a joke at the Golden Globes, and it was still like 2 or 3 days later before everybody realized, oh wait, the Hollywood Foreign Press isn't a thing.
Well, I'm convinced they fed that to him because he was just like, "Thank you all." It's called the Golden Globe Journalists. Like, that's any better?
Yeah,
I was like, at least Hollywood Foreign Press sounded legit.
It sounded like
Like,
legitimate and prestigious. It's like
Right.
the Golden Globe Journalist sounds like it was an afterthought. Like,
No,
we
it
made the Golden Globes.
sounds like, we're just in a room and we're trying to raise money every year so that we ourselves can benefit from it. And we just hold the ceremony
Yeah.
where celebrities get together in a room and pat
It's like,
themselves on the back.
we're Golden Globes. We're special.
And it's like, wow, yeah. I don't know what's going to happen. The Golden Globe journalists, probably are not turning the tide. We talked about that enough. What was that, last week or 2 weeks ago now?
I think it was last week.
Last week.
Oh, it was last week. Time just
No
flies so bad.
one cares about the Globes.
I mean,
you should talk about
there's-
important things.
There's so many weeks that we talk
Yeah.
about that. So,
Like freaking
are you
EGOT.
doing that to me or him?
Yes, I was going to say Elton John.
He got the EGOT.
He got the EGOT finally.
Here's my thing. It's not that I don't think he deserves to have an EGOT. It's just at this point in time, it kind of feels like a DiCaprio thing. Like I looked at what he won the Emmy for.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's some Disney Plus like variety show. And I'm like, they just handed that to him.
Of course they did.
I'm like,
I mean, if anything, this is what award shows have become
yeah.
now.
It's
This-
like, oh, he's
if
famous.
people-
And everybody wants him to be an EGOT winner. Just give it to him.
If
Just give
people
it to
feel
him.
like you are supposed to have it at some point and you
get
haven't
it.
gotten
Yep.
it,
Yeah.
then they're going to give you
I
something.
mean, it used to be that
eventually.
you could look back and decry some of the atrocities. Oh my gosh, I can't believe Hitchcock never won an Oscar.
Yeah,
all of these.
You think he should have, but I mean, maybe just every year there was something better.
right?
I'd have to
and
look.
it's like, but then again, you look at someone like, and you're just like, oh, they have an Oscar.
Yeah.
Again, I'll still never get over. I think it was Billy Crystal that came out and told the joke. He's like, 3 6 Mafia 1, Scorsese 0.
Yes.
And it was great. It
Perfect.
encapsulated it perfectly. That's that. And even though Scorsese has one now,
Yes.
it's like, nah.
Yeah.
Come
well,
on.
it's like the last the person to be inducted into the EGOT status was Viola Davis, and I'm not saying she's not talented, but I do think it's crazy that she got it before Elton John. So
Yeah, well, yeah, true. But at the same time, I also just find it funny that I'm like, yeah, it's almost as if now, if they believe that you're going to have it or you should, you deserve
have it.
It's. I guarantee you, there's going to be the
Lady
next.
Gaga doesn't have one yet, right? Because she will. She
right,
will.
She will.
Yeah, she will.
Give it enough time.
Yeah.
But I also think there's going to be one that breaks the mold,
and they're gonna do all 4 in 1 year. That's the next milestone. That's the next milestone. But no, we got a great show planned for everybody out there. Yes, we've got our review, of course, right off the top. It's a little different. We're not a normal one that's out in theaters because nothing really landed in theaters this past week.
This month sucks.
Sucks for movies.
I mean, this whole year's supposed to, according to Hollywood.
Yeah, that's really
We don't have
all
any
year.
movies. I'm
It's like
sorry.
the movies
what they
we
told
review
us.
this year are going to be.
Yeah, they did. They told us. They're like,
Yeah.
this year's going to suck, guys. This year's going to suck.
But we decided to go for one that was touted not only critically, but even audiences really, found it. I think not only it's not entertaining in all the right reasons. It's entertaining for the emotional and human.
It's gripping, which
nature
is
aspect it has. Yeah, exactly. It's gripping. I like that.
I think people definitely have gravitated towards it. I told you that it's really funny that the last month and a half, I think I even mentioned it in the review, the foreign and indie flicks that we've reviewed have all been better than mainstream Hollywood movies.
Right.
Iron Claw, Dream Scenario. I know Sean didn't quite care for Godzilla -1, but we liked it. And then now we have this movie. And it's kind of funny to me that I'm just like, huh. It's like, and people are noticing because this movie wasn't just one that we randomly chose. Like it has been at the top of Netflix charts a little bit.
And it's interesting because it's probably not going to get looked at a lot from people in the States because it is a foreign film. If you watch it in its original language with the subtitles, there is a dubbed version.
Yeah, it defaults to that version on Netflix.
The
if that's how
version
you
that I
have it set.
watched was dubbed.
Same.
Yeah.
I watched the
went
dubbed
straight
version.
to the dubbed version.
Yeah, I think if you're set on Netflix to English, it automatically goes to the English dubbed version. I did watch it. I watched some scenes in the dub because I always like to check the dub out, and it actually.
It wasn't bad.
it wasn't.
Yeah,
The voice,
I don't like dubs, and like the few scenes I watched in dub, I was like, oh, this was well done. So,
I agree. But I will say it's something that I was not expecting. Quite a bit of a surprise, considering that I know we were trying to figure out after the show last week what we were going to review.
Yeah.
And that
I'm
is
glad we chose it.
Society of the Snow, which happens to be based on a true story of, I believe they were Uruguayan and was it Portuguese?
I know it was a Uruguayan team, and they were on
Rugby
their way
team.
to Chile.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I totally got I got the second
It was a
one.
1972 Andes plane crash. Is kind of what most people know it about. Sean had mentioned the movie Alive with.
I have. Yeah, we'll get into it
Okay.
after the
Yeah,
review because I have thoughts.
Starring
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke in
Yeah,
the 93
that
version.
was popular in the 90s. Yeah.
But we'll kind of compare and contrast those. I haven't seen Alive, but I'll let Sean do most of the talking there. But what about this one? Is it a faithful adaptation based on the true stories of the people who experienced it and the survivors?
Now, they are both based on separate books. Like
Right.
they're not based on each other.
But
so
both
same
are
incident.
based on true adaptations
Yes. Yeah.
of what happened.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it up to your all's judgment of who told it better. But ultimately, let's get into our review of, yes, Society of the Snow.
Winter is in full force as winter storms have impacted much of the United States this past weekend. While Louisville endured the horrors of a blizzard that nearly left a full centimeter of snow on the ground, we review a film that is newly dropped on Netflix this month about a team that had to survive the harsh snowy environment of the Andes. Having enjoyed a small theatrical release here in the States last month, The Society of the Snow is a Spanish film from director J.A. Bayona, whose career has seen both success with films like The Orphanage and criticism with Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Based on the 1972 crash of the Uruguayan Andes flight, a story previously depicted in the 1993 Hollywood film Alive. Society of the Snow is based on a book of the same name by Pablo Vierci, in which is depicted the real-life accounts of all 16 survivors. The movie begins setting the stage as the core of the characters are players for the Old Christians Uruguayan rugby team, building the characters' camaraderie and introducing the audience to those who will be significant. From there, the vast majority of the film focuses on the crash and survival, depicting the hope and humanity of the survivors alongside the unimaginable horrors they faced. At nearly 2.5 hours long, the movie is well-paced, steady, neither rushing through the events nor meandering. Choosing to spend the bulk of the runtime showcasing the actual survival could have risked character development and emotional backstory, but instead pays off. Learning who the characters were through the trials they faced and becoming attached to them through their hardships does a great deal for showing the survivors' true characters and forming emotional bonds, taking what may have been a negative aspect in other disaster films and making it a strength. That said, the downside was that some of the smaller characters with less screen time don't quite have the emotional connection and payoff I felt the film was going for in comparison to the major players. Going a long way in assisting the emotional connections and gut-wrenching tragedy the characters face are the performances which created relatable and likable characters. Played by a talented cast which were reported to be mostly new Argentinian and Uruguayan actors, the film is both available in its original Spanish with English subtitles and dubbed with an English voice cast. While I watched the entire film in its native Spanish, I did rewatch some scenes in the dubbed option. The performances given by the native cast are terrific, never feeling over the top nor melodramatic. That said, while I normally am not fond of dubs, I felt this one is well done as well, and the rare dub that didn't pull me out of the story or significantly hinder the performance of the actors' expressions and emotions. That said, I do still think the original language with the subtitles is the best of the two options, maintaining the actors' performances and the movie's overall tone. Society of the Snow is a compelling disaster film that is largely accurate to the real events that happened. Seeing what these players had to endure to survive the physical, mental, and even moral dilemmas they face to live are enough to make anyone's blood run cold. Crafting a compelling drama all while maintaining historical accuracy is a balancing act Hollywood regularly fails at, let alone a foreign film with a budget equivalent to around $65 million. This isn't to say Society of the Snow is perfect or gets all the details right. I do have minor gripes about the conditions of the survivors. While the effects are well done, including the crash itself, and there aren't any moments where I felt something looked fake, the survivors themselves, while certainly worse for wear by the end, still don't look like I'd expect people who survived 60 days in the Andes to look. Add on top some judgment calls, like no one on screen ever attempting to make a fire, and there are a few moments that may or may not be real based on the true events, but aren't given due on film to justify them being more than a lapse in plot development. While Society of the Snow doesn't raise the bar for true story disaster films, it is exceptionally well made despite my minor nitpicks. It is also Spain's official submission for Best International Film at this year's Oscars, though it remains to be seen on whether or not it gets one of the nominations. That said, it is a far cry better than many of the mainstream Hollywood films we've seen so far this past year, and I would put it up there with the better foreign and indie flicks we've reviewed the last month and a half, once again proving that the best movies are no longer coming from mainstream Hollywood. It's not a revolutionary film, but it deserves all the praise it's garnered so far, and is definitely worth checking out if you're looking for something good on Netflix. I give The Society of the Snow 3 out of 4 stars.
There you have it. 3 out of 4 stars for Society of the Snow. Available on Netflix right now. Stream if you would like.
Stream with us.
I'm in agreement. I've not seen Alive. I don't know anything. I know Ethan Hawke is in it.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this. Again, for lack of a better word. It was enthralling. It was definitely visceral. I think that the length was a little bit long in certain parts. I think part of that is just because I'm watching a foreign film and it's dubbed, and there is parts where even if the dub is real well, which it was done well, there's times where you can pick up on the voices not obviously matching with the mouths, and after 2.5 hours of that, it starts to poke.
For me, it's the emotion in the face sometimes, where like the voice doesn't match the way
inflection.
They're acting, and I'm just like, I don't know about that.
No, same. But for the most part, I was glad that for the 2.5 hours, about I'd say 2 hours of it, you're on the mountain with them. It doesn't spend a whole lot of buildup in the very beginning of it's just a short little, hey, they're a rugby team, they're going to Chile, and, have at it. They're on the plane. I even told Keith, I said the first time since this is the first time I'm watching this movie, but also I knew of the story. I honestly had completely forgot there were any survivors, and I certainly didn't remember how many. So I was very much shocked in terms of like I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't want to give away too much, but ultimately,
It's the true story. It happened. So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if people don't know
I
the
know,
story,
I
they
know.
haven't seen it.
Yeah.
It's worth checking
50
out.
years
The
ago.
spoilers came out 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I know. hey! I'm still not saying that Harry Potter and the Horcruxes. I'm not spoiling any of that. Okay.
All right, don't do
All right.
What
Don't-
about Luke's father?
Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Oh God.
But no, if anything, I thought they were going to make it to Chile, do a rugby match, and then it was on the way
On the
back.
way back, yeah.
The moment they start, kind of are goofing off on the plane and everything's hunky dory, I'm like, oh, they're going to hit turbulence and it's going to be a false alarm, just a foreshadowing. No, it gets right into it.
A nice little gotcha there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, as typical American movies
Yeah,
do.
they got 'em.
And that's the other thing. I like not only not knowing the story before going into this, but also not knowing how much they were going to embellish.
Yeah.
Because that's always a question when they're talking about based on a true
Oh
story.
yeah. How much? Well, it's funny because the director, I feel like his career's been all over the place, and it does seem like this was something a little bit more he was more passionate about, which I think is why it is more faithful to what happened and why it's much better made than Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. Which
That wasn't faithful to what really happened at all.
Yeah. To be fair, I told Brandon it looks like everything that like is an original movie of his that like he helped like write and direct is good, and then anything that was a huge because he also did the first 2 episodes of Rings of Pooh, and I'm like, so basically if it's a big franchise IP that he doesn't write the script for, he's just like who gives a crap and makes whatever.
or
Takes
he,
pride in his own work.
I was going to say, he tries too hard to be faithful or to be like, oh, the fans are going to love this. And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, you don't understand fandom at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah,
It could be that
Maybe.
end of the spectrum, too.
Well, I don't feel like there's a lot of fan service in Fallen Kingdom. That was in Dominion, which came late, the third one.
Well, they were trying to
Yeah.
resurrect
Yeah.
what little fans were sticking
Yeah.
around, and they just
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give him credit. Fallen Kingdom's not as bad as Dominion.
That's absolutely true.
I don't, this guy,
Yeah.
Well,
Sean,
again, he didn't write it, but yeah.
Yeah.
But what about you, Sean? Since you had seen Alive and you've now seen this one,
Yeah.
what did you think?
So the movies are almost identical, as I was telling y'all during the review. Like it was actually, that was what I was surprised by, was I was expecting this movie to be much more detailed and accurate, and if it is true to the real story, then so was the original movie, because the camera angles, the scene, I mean, everything plays out exactly the same. Even some of the dialogue is exactly the same.
Well, that was the real camera angles and dialogue.
If it really happened, I'm just like, but I mean, there's so many scenes that are exactly shot for shot the '93 film that that was what surprised me, because I'm like, I've already seen this movie. I did think though, even though Ethan Hawke is good in the '93 film, I did think the acting in this film was way better, much more, like you said, riveting, and kind of like just it really made me feel more like I was witnessing the terror that they were experiencing. Whereas in the '93 film, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's the guy from White Fang.
Yeah.
And it's because that was around the same time that he filmed
Yeah.
White
It's
Fang.
like hiring a white guy to
it's
play
like
someone from Europe.
Right. It's like, oh, they wanted him to do 2 movies in the snow, so they did White Fang and Alive at the same time or something.
Either Hawk
But it
was just booming back then.
Yeah,
he was. He
But,
was
on the
popular.
come up and coming.
It's very much, it's startling how close it is to the other film.
Well,
There was
and-
a couple of differences, like I'll say, and I don't know if this is true to the story or not, but in the American film, or in the 1993 version, there's only one avalanche that happens. It happens once. It doesn't happen twice back to back. They get hit once and buried in the snow, and then that's it. But the scenes of that happening, even the scenes inside the plane, it's all in the first movie. It's crazy.
Which, and I mean, I it's funny though, because I think, isn't that a testament to, I guess, because the properties are based on 2 different novels, but both from survivors.
Both written
Well,
using survivor accounts.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it's interesting that I'm like, in one respect,
You would want them to line up.
right?
Yeah.
I would hope they would,
Yeah.
because if this one was completely different, then somebody's lying. Somebody's not telling
Yeah.
the truth
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. They got
Something's
their story
completely
right,
fabricated.
okay?
Yeah, no, this is
Yeah.
gospel.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like Matthew and Mark, like they line up that much.
Right.
Like there's very few instances where you would say that story contradicts this one.
Now, was that a problem for you in watching it? Were you bored by it, or were you still entertained?
At times, because it literally, I've seen Alive dozens of times. I watched it when it came out. I watched it as I got older and understood it more. But it's a great movie for when it came out, and so I know it pretty well. And I knew what was going to happen, scene by scene, watching this film. So nothing surprised me. There was literally nothing that surprised me, because everything is the same. A couple of the moments of dialogue when they're talking about eating the dead, that is a little bit different, and they get a little bit more graphic with the preparation for the eating
In Alive?
in this movie
Oh,
than
okay.
they did in Alive. In Alive, there's no bones up on top of the snow where people could see it, like they buried everything.
I'm actually kind of glad they did that in this.
No, and that
Yeah.
to me that would be more accurate to real life, because you're trying not to expend energy.
Yeah.
So you're not going to take the time to bury the bodies. The bodies were laid there, and the snow just covered them over time.
Yeah.
I was going to
But-
say, well, and that was the thing too, is while they're discussing it, I enjoyed the aspect of, because this is one thing that, and they might have done this in the original. I'm taking your word for it because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure too that the faith aspect
Yes.
was heavy.
Yeah.
Laden, and I don't think that's something that if it was
Yeah.
American made today, they would have touched on those themes as heavily as this being a Spanish film, which
Yeah.
obviously, Hispanic culture in general is very Catholic.
Right, yeah, primarily Catholic,
And ultimately, I'm just like, the fact that was, those dealt with a lot of the heavy arching themes. And I even told Keith, I'm like, and I didn't agree with everything that was said. There's the one guy who gives the speech of,
That's not in the other movie.
this
but
guy,
that-
I believe in this guy, and I believe in this guy, and I have faith in this guy.
faith
And
in
that
your
was
legs,
his.
faith in your hands.
Right,
and
and
all
I'm
that
just
stuff,
like,
yeah.
that was a little bit more modern, I would say.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it happened, I don't
Yeah.
really care. It didn't
Right.
take away from the movie.
No.
I just
But
thought it was a little pointed.
There were 3 or 4 people that don't eat and
Yeah.
end up. Some of them end up starving. Some of them end up surviving, even though they didn't eat. But the majority of the survivors absolutely
That
did.
got me though.
Yeah.
That realistic conversation of these survivors trying to decipher of one, to be in a life or death situation. And look, nobody knows what they would truly do. Everybody says, "Oh, I would never do that," or "Oh, I would do this." You
I'd
don't know
totally eat a
till you're.
person.
Keith's just calling it out right
Yeah.
now.
You got to live.
Do we have permission to eat you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to survive somehow.
Keith ain't gonna lie, you'd feed us,
After I'm
man.
dead. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely no killing to eat.
Yeah.
But when someone dies, it's fair game.
So in
I'll
this
talk about it after
movie,
the podcast.
yeah, that's right. I'm getting a little hungry. In this movie, that is a serious conversation.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
the original movie, there's a moment where they're discussing. They've already started doing that, but one guy says, "If I die, you have permission to eat my body," and it's quiet, and then all of a sudden there's another guy in the original film that's kind of the comedic relief. That guy did not exist in this movie. I mean, his character was there, but he wasn't a comedic person in
They
this
didn't
movie.
have that in the
right.
movie, yeah.
And in the original, he's just like, "If I die, you can eat me too," or something. He makes it. They joke,
make it
and they
jo-
all start kind of laughing
It's
about
like a dark comedic
yeah.
moment. Yeah.
And then I think in the original movie, it was also that guy's birthday while they were there, which I did read really happened. It was his birthday while he was there.
Yeah, he mentioned it in the new movie,
Yeah,
too.
and
Yeah.
they make a
Numa.
cupcake out of a snowball, and they put a piece of string or something in the snowball and light it.
Wow.
And he blows it out like it's a birthday cake.
Okay.
So there's just some subtle differences, but for
Yeah.
the most part, it's the same thing. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this was to get into my nitpicks of, I think obviously I'm in agreement. 3 out of 4 stars. Which
I do too.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's a good movie.
Oh, yeah.
I would
No, it's
also
not
say
perfect.
that the original's 3 out of 4 as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the
Gives
same
me-
movie.
But see, now going back, I'm like, do I want to go watch it?
You
'Cause
should
if I
watch
know
it.
it's the same.
Yeah, you should watch it.
All right. But
You'll be in the boat that I'm in.
It's like just
you've seen this one first, and you'll be like, oh wow.
okay.
Yeah.
That actually is
Yeah.
that's a good way of doing it, because obviously you've seen it chronologically when it came
Yeah.
came out, but
Yeah.
now I can go back and look at how closely related the original was. But no, one of the minor gripes and nitpicks I had were certain little things like that. Nothing huge, but here I am. Multiple times they show this lighter. Multiple times they're using it to heat, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
you could open
Burn
up, you could
something.
find some
Yeah.
way to
The
create a
seats,
fire.
something.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like,
The
there's
clothes
so-
off the dead.
Yes.
I mean,
even
anything.
and you can even like I don't know, scrape enough snow down and like you can make an igloo or
Well,
something.
I said
and
use
create.
they had like the steel, like the
Yeah.
metal sided briefcases. Pop that open and build a fire inside one of the. Like I agree. There was
There
things
were
like
just
that.
little things, and then even you brought it up in the review that I would agree with, and this is more of a minor nitpick in terms of production. I thought the very end, when they finally show the wear and tear in their body and how gaunt and
Yeah.
thin they are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
was done well. But it's weird how it's like in that shot you see them being stripped of their clothing, they're being held up in the shower, yet here we were just like not a couple scenes ago, and they're up on the mountaintop and they're rushing to get to this chopper. And look, granted, I know when adrenaline kicks in your body
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're full of it, but even before, like there's times where after they, the second cave in into the fuselage, they're sitting in there, they finally climb their way out, they get out, and for a brief moment, they're happy to just be back out in the open, which I kind of get that. You're not
Yeah.
going to end your life suffocating in this, prison. But then all of a sudden, like one's taking his shirt off, and I'm like, it's still freakishly,
Yeah.
freezing out there.
Yeah.
And I just could not imagine.
Hey, those fans at the Bills Stadium had their shirts off.
Yeah.
showing
well,
the snow.
yeah,
It's a little different than
I
the
think
Andes,
it's
but
funny because it's kind of like what we were talking about next door tonight, because it's cold as balls outside.
Yeah.
And it was just like next week it'll be 40 degrees,
And
and
we'll
we'll
be
be
outside
thinking
without
this is
shirts on.
t-shirt weather.
True.
Compared to this
Very
week.
true.
And I think at night, once the sun went down, and they mentioned it in this movie, which I don't recall them mentioning it
they
in
did
the
say it
original.
drops like
but they're-
negative 29.
Yeah,
or something
well, they
like
said
that.
there's an 80-degree drop in temperature
God, that's
between
crazy.
day and night.
That's
and
insane.
so
Yeah.
in the sun, you sit there and you get baked and you get a sunburn. That's why their faces look the way they do.
Yeah, because the snow would reflect off the snow.
Right. It's
That
it's
makes
it's
sense.
warm enough, but then at night is when it really like gets you, and you can't go to sleep, because if you do, you'll die in your sleep. Like it's insane.
There were some little wear and tear things like that. Like I told Brandon, like just the fact that like none of their fingers ever start turning blue or black. Like eventually,
frostbite.
The,
or
the
something.
one guy's sister's nose
yeah,
turns black.
Her
before she
nose,
dies.
and the one guy did have the black under his eyes.
Yeah.
But like little things, they tried, and I appreciated it. But there was just some stuff
I felt like, or even when they tried, there were certain times that felt inconsistent scene to scene. There were times where, like usually with a movie like this, and it is hard to do, but continuity from beginning to end, you want to see them continue to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And there were times where I
by
felt
the
like,
end of the movie, he didn't have the black under his eyes anymore.
And even when they're finally crawling up this mountain, and I know he was kind of the figure of hope and wanting to continue and
Yeah.
strive, but I'm just like, there were times where I was like, okay, they're spent. This is it. That dude's done. And the next thing I know, they're up there climbing, and and I'm like, okay, I got this. Like, I get that they're wanting to fight for every little ounce of strength they have, and they can make it through. You're explaining that well. But in terms of from scene to scene, it's like one moment they're done, they're about to die curled up in a ball.
Yeah.
Next moment they're climbing the mountain and they're
Yeah.
finding hope. And I'm like, all right, I'm feeling a little juxtaposition here of just, it didn't feel
Yeah.
nice and tightly wound.
One thing in regards to that I feel like the original movie did better is it points out, and they mentioned it in this movie, they mentioned that it was going to take a couple of weeks for them to make or like 2 weeks or something to make the sleeping bag. But in the original movie, they obviously have that conversation, but it's also like, we're going to go up there and we're going to explore, we're going to see what we can see when we get to the top, and then when we come back down, it's like we need 6 or 7 days to eat and to rest.
Okay.
And to replenish our bodies so that we can make that trek again.
That makes
and they
sense.
do that. They actually, the 3 guys that go up, the rest of the survivors give them extra portions of what they're eating to build up their strength because they're the ones they're going to send.
That explains it a lot better in terms of them building their strength and kind of getting ready for this last hoorah.
Yeah, they keep like not a calendar, but they keep track of how long it's been since they've gone up, and then they make that trek 2 or 3 times.
In this movie, they're like, it's going to take 2 weeks. And they do mention, let's build up our strength, but then it immediately cuts. Like, it jumps through the 2 weeks.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't show it. Yeah.
And I kind of get that. I mean, look, it does span. I was shocked, and this will be my final point because we can move on. Because clearly we like the movie. We recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not perfect, but good.
Yeah, and but I was shocked at how long they spent up there. I thought that was incredible to find out.
71 days or something like that.
And I was like, I mean, to me, if there's any reason I think this movie is not just a model of the human spirit and how you can overcome the greatest of odds, more than you think you can. I also think it's great for the time period we live in today because there's so much nihilism and just, lost senses of hope out there that are just plaguing all sorts of, whether it's social media getting you down, whether it's the daily doldrums of just what's going on in your own life. There's just so much that you're hardly ever made aware of, one, how comfortable your life really is, and also how much more you can endure than you think you can.
I think it also shows nowadays everybody is kind of out for themselves.
Yes.
And this is a movie where you see these people do
banding
everything
together
for each other.
So kind of the whole point of the name is like society of this. Like they each like this person was in charge of cutting up these people cut up the bodies and tell us this person distributed. They do, like each person had this guy was fixing the electronics.
They were a rugby team and they remain a team through the whole thing, which is pretty good.
And I think too, and very much in that circumstance, but also with that few of people, I mean, like it shows you how quickly you can not only devolve into madness if you let your nerves get to you, but also if you don't pitch in, how much more at your own peril is your independence. How much you do depend on this small nuclear group of people that you're around. And I think both instances are true, and both instances are definitely stories that need to be told. And this is just one of those movies that, again, I can't help but say this is just not a movie I think that would be made by Hollywood. It's not. I mean, I hate to say it, but they wouldn't. As harrowing as this story is, and as heroic, and even I love that. I loved how and this will be my final point, I promise. I loved how the movie ended with them being found and everybody cheering and happy for them. But as they're getting out of the ambulance going into the hospital, their thought is it's like any survivor's guilt that you would see.
Yeah, it's not a victory for them.
Right. Yeah. They're like, these people don't have any idea what we endured.
Yeah.
They don't have a clue what we went through. And
what they did.
Or what they did.
And
what they what they had to do to survive.
Right.
And it's like, while they're happy to be back with their friends and family and their loved ones, at the end of the day, they have to live with those memories. And some are sacred and others are horrific. And the thing is no one will ever truly know. It's like a war story. It's like people coming home from war and realizing what they had to endure and what they had to go through, and nobody will understand quite to the extent that they did, that visceral nature of it. And so, I just think it's, for that purpose, it's a story worth retelling. I mean, obviously it hasn't been revisited for 30 years. So it's been over 30 years since the original. I think it's one to check out. If you can't overcome the subtitles or even the dub, absolutely. It's on Netflix. If you've got a subscription, I say give it a watch. It's worth it.
I appreciated the scripture. No greater love than to lay one's life down for their friend. And they used that in the movie, and I really thought that kind of summed up
the entire story.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Alrighty, guys, I think we're ready to move on to our headlines. Let's roll that open.
Yeah.
All right. Hitting it right out of the box with our big top headline for the evening. That's right. It's the title of our show. Amazon going through some layoffs. No, we're not talking about the shipping and getting all your packages and it's after Christmas, so they don't need all those seasonal workers anymore. No, not that side of Amazon. We're talking about Prime. We're talking about MGM. We're talking about their video streaming on-demand services. They're laying off.
Twitch.
Grinch? Is that what you said?
Twitch.
Oh, Twitch.
Twitch. That was the other one.
Twitch.
Twitch streaming. That's right. They own Twitch, the game streaming network.
How many of y'all knew that?
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. That's like
No,
Amazon.
I did.
Oh,
know
did
that.
you?
Yeah, I did know that. You didn't?
I did not.
Wow.
Amazon
Now you
owns
know.
Switch.
The more you know.
I don't use it anyway, but
Yeah.
We're on it. We stream to it every week.
It's us and a bunch
I
of...
knew we were on it, but I don't like. I've never.
It's
logged
almost
into Twitch.
become a OnlyFans. Like now,
Really?
now the
did you?
gamers are getting on there naked and
Well,
stuff.
they
and playing.
backtracked on that. Remember, they said that because they had the tranny that got on there.
Well, they weren't
And the-
banning. Like we're suspending, not banning.
But
Suspending
the
people.
tranny had exposed themselves, and because they were they were
God.
basically using it as they're not going to ban me because of me and
Yeah,
who I am,
right.
and what I'm going through, and so they basically opened. It was the Wild West for like a week. It may not have even lasted a week, and they were just like, no, artful nudity is appreciated and okay. Well, then of course, all the OnlyFans
What do
women
you,
came out.
what do you
Yeah.
consider artful?
Artful,
But
yeah.
then all the women came out and
toe
started
pictures.
exposing.
Toe pictures are artful.
And actually, I think it was within 24 hours. They backtracked on this and they were like, okay, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
I forget. We could find it was back in the fall.
Once you open the floodgates, I bet they did realize.
It wasn't that
This has
long
nothing
ago.
to do with why. Well, maybe it has a little bit to do with why Amazon's.
I think
making
so.
layoffs.
Because, well, look, with the talk of just a few weeks ago when we were talking about WB
oh yeah,
buying out Paramount and them, could you really believe that one of the big studios that is over 100 years old is going to be under the realm of another studio?
yeah. If it happened to Fox,
I mean, well,
but that's what's crazy. Is
MGM
it's-
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MGM was huge,
That-
and
well,
now
it used to
Amazon
be.
owns it.
I was just saying, all the original Big Five are all starting to fold. So
But I think it's interesting because I will say I don't know if I'm going to read it verbatim. I have to pull up the article here. It is linked in the description below, or will be after we post the show. But I will say that they're a little bit more cut and dry with their approach in terms of it is the typical PR speak and jargon within how they're letting these employees know that they're laid off. But let's see. I know this was CEO Dan Clancy announcing the 500 cuts that are coming to the Amazon-owned live stream service provided these details. And this is coming from, I'm not sure which Amazon service. I don't know if that's Twitch or if that's at MGM. Or
It says that all 500 layoffs were with Twitch.
all of them?
It says it's all Twitch. 35% of the workforce is let go.
Oh,
from
well,
Twitch.
see, it says these layoffs are the first to hit the division in the new year, but the departments have been affected on a rolling basis in the wake of 2022's close of Amazon's
you're right.
acquisition of MGM, as well as an economic downturn, the writers and actors strike. In 2023, approximately 18,000 cuts hit as a whole, but now these 500, I guess, are coming from...
No, it says right in the first line, Amazon's laying off several hundred employees, Prime Video, Amazon, MGM. Additionally, 500 employees or 35% from Twitch.
So, so Dan
Yeah.
Clancy is the CEO of Twitch, and he said this. I know many of you are wondering why this is happening. Over the last year, we've been working to build a more sustainable business to show nudes so that Twitch will be here for the long run and throughout the year. We have cuts, costs, and many decisions made many decisions to be more efficient. Unfortunately, despite these efforts, it has become clear that our organization is still meaningfully larger than it needs to be given the size of our business. Last year, we paid over $1 billion to streamers. We didn't get any of that, guys. Sorry. So while the Twitch business remains strong, for some time now, the organization has been sized based upon where we were optimistically expect our business to be 3 or more years, not where we are at today. As with many of companies in the tech space, we are now sizing our organization based upon the current scale of our business and conservative predictions of how we expect the future. So basically, he's at least, well, there's a lot of bit of, kind of dancing around.
Yeah.
Like, it's like most of these people are probably like reading this and be like, well, I'm done anyway. I don't care. I don't care what your excuse is for the business because I'm not here anymore. But it is interesting that they're saying we used to see things 3 years out and projected on the basis of what we thought the industry was going to move towards. But now we're being a little bit more conservative in our estimates of where the industry is headed, especially in this space. And we're going to start being a little bit more strict with how we put our focuses and basically where we put our money and where we put our investments. So let me ask you all, in terms of the Twitch streaming space, they're saying they paid out $1 billion, and that's extremely successful. And there's obviously no doubt about it. We know that streaming video games is successful. But what does this bode well for Twitch in the future? Is this a bad thing? Does this mean they're actually ultimately losing? Do we think Twitch is going to be here as part of Amazon that much longer? Or is this another excuse for them to just go belly up down the road?
I think it's hard to say without looking at the overall of Amazon as well, because I mean, like, obviously, because the cuts weren't just made at Twitch, because they go on to talk about Amazon Prime later on in the article as well. And it's like, I don't really know. I don't ever use Twitch. So as far as like they paid out over $1 billion to streamers, I get that, because, you know, that's who brings in consumers, and that's how they get their money, is by supporting the streamers. But it's like, okay, if you're paying $1 billion out but still not making a profit, there's something wrong here. And I want to know why. Like, because I mean, you're not cutting people if you're grossing well. So it's like, so where's the disconnect? Why are you?
That's what I want to know.
Why are you spending? Because that's where they don't
of
mention.
These 500 people. It's like, what exactly are these cuts coming from?
Yeah. Why? How does this save you money? Why do you need to save money? Because obviously, like you said, if you're doing well enough to pay out $1 billion, it's like, well, where's the income? That's like Amazon Prime spent $1 billion for Lord of the Rings, and it made them nothing, which that comes into play in the later part of the article.
Okay, let me ask you that. Do you all think some of these they're bleeding over into the many different the many different companies?
The parent company's bleeding,
right,
so they have to take the cuts out of Twitch. So it's not really Twitch's problem, but Amazon's saying, hey, we got to make cuts somewhere, and you're as good a place as any to do it. It could be. I mean, I don't think that's a great way to run your company either, but if Amazon's that desperate, because we're seeing, it's not just Amazon. We've seen Disney making layoffs. They have a whole list, I think, in this article of, major media and tech layoff announcements, and they're all on here. Universal, NBC, Google, Amazon, Spotify, Lionsgate. So they're not the only, Blumhouse is at the very bottom.
Whoa, I was told Bidenomics is booming. I was told we were doing just fine, and doesn't matter if there's a writer strike or
this is a lot
strike.
of major companies that are laying off. You got hundreds, 17%, 10%, 20%. So I mean, that doesn't sound like companies that are doing just astronomical.
Well, and is it that their predictions were too big? I mean, is it that these tech companies in and of themselves grew to such enormous amounts that they just thought, oh, the cash flow is coming. We're living high off the hog, and now they're coming home to roost.
I think, and I mean, I know like Hollywood wants to blame COVID, and I do think to an extent that COVID bubble burst, where they saw a lot of this influx of people trapped at home. So Amazon Prime's getting a boom, Netflix is getting a boom, and they knew it was coming. What they did to prepare for it was nothing, because they wanted to keep the COVID hype going rather than promote, go back to the theaters, go back and do this, go back and do that. It's like they worked against themselves.
Stay home and watch our streaming service.
I think they worked against themselves. And when people were finally allowed out of their houses and they were sick of being cooped up, they said, sayonara, we don't need Netflix with your password crackdown and your high price raises. Amazon's hike price raises. Everybody has raised prices. I think people are just like,
putting
we're
ads.
Done. Yeah,
they're actually starting. They're going to start putting ads
in your stuff,
in your Amazon Prime Video.
Yeah,
it's like, wait a second.
So
I thought this was part of my perk.
$120 a month,
right?
Or not a month. Good Lord, that'd be awful. A year.
Yeah, but for just $1.99, I think it's $1.29 or something more per month. You can add on to ad free, or maybe more than that. I can't remember.
It's like, okay, if you're going to do ad free service and an ad service, you should create a lower priced service with ads, not
keep it the same.
It's
as
like
before.
It's like now this service is full of ads, and you have to pay us even more for ad free. And it's like, no, we already had ad free.
Right. I'm trying to look up the price tag.
Oh, I know. It's just getting to a point where it's becoming
starting in February, and Amazon is adding the ads. Let me see if I can find the price in here. Monday, February 5th. So it's coming,
Yeah.
guys.
Wow.
It's right around the corner.
This year is when Disney's supposed to start cracking down on password sharing, and they own Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN.
Well,
they're merging them into one app. So.
But they're also adding, my Disney Plus subscription ends in April, and my family already knows I'm not renewing because of that, but also because the price hike comes.
Yeah.
And they're raising it to, I think it's going to end up being like $150 per year, as opposed to like $120.
They're merging them all into one app, doing a price hike, and then cracking down on password sharing. And it's like, and you expect people to continue with your service now that it used to, everybody went to streaming because it was cheaper than cable.
Yeah.
It's like you could have 5 different streaming services and it would only cost you maybe $50 a month. Like if that was even 10
it's like
per service.
$3. It's like $3 in addition to what you already pay for Prime
Per month.
per month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you want, and now it goes up even more if you're just paying for Prime Video and you don't have Amazon Prime. It goes from, they're doing from like the $11.99 per month now up to I think $14.99
See,
per
we
month.
pay per year.
I
Right.
pay
Pay
per year.
annually.
You can.
But this will be in addition to that. So you can add on monthly to what already Prime subscription you already have. So if you pay yearly, you can add on that monthly subscription and
You'd
pay
basically
$3 to
be
get
adding an
ad-free.
extra 36
dollars
Bucks
per
a
month.
year.
or 3 not 36 3
3 times 12 at 36.
yeah 36 yeah.
We're trying to do math like Kamala.
Yeah.
Simple math.
Yeah.
I had it
that's
right the first time. I don't know why I doubted
Yeah.
myself.
Simple math. Simple math.
I watch a lot of I do watch a lot of like gaming videos and stuff on YouTube, and sometimes I'll find
Twitches.
stuff on Twitch, and there's a person that's on Twitch, and I say a person because it's a boy that thinks he's a girl and dresses up like a girl on there. That's how he got famous. He was a boy playing video games on Twitch, and then it was like, I'm gonna spend a week dressed as a girl and makeup and all this stuff, and now that's just what he does all the time.
Well, he's just.
But-
So wait, he's not trans. He's just.
Correct.
He's a cross dresser.
Yes.
Okay.
And but anyway, I don't really think he even does gaming videos hardly anymore. Now it's more of just him getting on there and talking. So, but used to play Fortnite and all that kind of stuff and was really famous. But I was just looking up his earnings because his I'm not going to say his gamer tag because I don't want to plug him on our show. But his earnings, he's making about $2,400 a day on Twitch. So if they're dishing out $1 billion,
we know it. Well, and that's the thing
that's
with
easy.
all of
That
these
could
streaming
happen,
services.
yeah.
YouTube is the same way.
Yeah.
It's like they'll sit there and talk about how much they're giving creators, but it's like, yeah, how much of the top 1% though are like your content creators?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we all know it's going to MKBHD, iJustine, and
Yeah.
Linus Tech Tips. It's like, come on. I mean, if you, look, and I'm not saying that there's not a platform. I mean, look, we're in that space. We're trying to compete. We're trying to get our name.
We don't
you
get
know,
any money.
we get $0 per
No,
day.
it's
Yeah.
guys, I've been in the hole for a long time in this venture. But no, the thing is even if you can make a breakthrough, I think the scary part about it is the shrinking space as a whole, not just in the YouTube creator space or influencer space, but more so when it comes to streaming services, when it comes to, I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago, and it's no more apparent that it is becoming, I mean, I'm shocked by this. I've admitted, I guess by now my stupidity for having collectively gone in on the whole video on demand or the buying digital. And it's like I fully consumed that because it's like in my mind I was like, this is the alternative, getting rid of physical media. Well, now it's becoming absolutely. And it was always that's been the sell ever since these inventions of iPhones got into our pocket. It's like
It's convenient. Carry it anywhere with you.
it changes the world, and it's like, oh, the next great tech invention that completely normalizes a way in which you connect and communicate with one another. It's this new wave of transformation and communication, and it's like we immediately adopt it now. I mean, just like the 24-hour news cycle, and it's like everything has become just so. And I'm trying to think of the right word.
Well, it's made the world smaller in a way, but
Yeah, but it's also just made it. Hollow is one way of putting it, but also like we don't feel anything anymore. I mean, it's
apathetic.
like everything's apathetic.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, a wreck could happen, and instead of actually getting out and focusing
No,
on
you
the
pull your
person,
phone out and
you got to
record.
record it and be like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, look what I just saw. It's insane.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're worried about document. Actually, Michael Knowles had a fantastic segment on his show yesterday about this, and he was just talking about how, the sin of self-indulgence being such that you're worried about, people aren't worried about having kids anymore and that being their legacy. They're worried about this endless age of digital information and going at whatever cost is necessary to make sure that somehow you leave a digital footprint that you can get your 15 minutes of fame, and that somehow you think that is going to bring your immortality. It's like your self-indulgence basically becoming a god in the form of this digital format so that you can live on forever.
Everyone will forever know the Numa Numa kid. Forever.
Well, we
Chocolate
do.
Rain
Because
forever.
we were there. Gen Z doesn't know who
No,
Numa
they don't
Numa
know.
is.
Well, that's the thing.
They don't know Chocolate Rain.
They might come back. Some of these memes will come back in time, I think. But you're right. A lot. Those are rare
They'll be
occurrences. Yeah,
They'll be hip again.
Yeah,
But that's the thing.
but those are rare
even-
occurrences. It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
like that everybody's going to get. I mean, there's going to be things completely forgotten by everybody. But yes, but the generation that experienced it.
No, but the thing is social media, the TikToks, the Instagrams, they make people believe that you can have that one video that's going to go viral and
Yeah.
you'll be famous all of a
Well,
sudden.
and we see it all the time.
That can happen to anybody.
It's backed up by our corporate media. It's backed up by the culture in terms of not only rewarding it. I mean, when
Yeah.
we see something that goes viral, the first thing we want to do is either one, watch it or share it.
Sure, yeah.
And we want to spread it. But it's like,
Yeah.
personally, when we're not affected by it, it's okay because it's here and it's gone.
Yeah.
It's that dopamine rush, boom, in the instant, and then we're done. But when you think about it in terms of the longevity of that person and what it really means to them, it's like, how much more are we less, we don't feel anything. We're less attached or connected. We're more connected than ever, but less connected in terms of like human flesh and blood. It's like, again, talk about this movie we just reviewed. The instances of, would you really band together and stick it out with one another and build the society you need to survive?
Yeah.
Or is it everybody's at the expense?
Every man for themselves.
Everybody's disposable because I'm the one that's going to survive.
Yeah.
And I think when you come to these streaming services, it's funny because all of these people, I mean, even Amazon, betting the bank and, buying up MGM, buying up Twitch, these big brands that are popular at the given moment. And now even WB buying out Disney buying out Fox, WB looking to buy Paramount, even though Discovery, they just merged with Discovery, and they're already still looking at ways to cut costs.
Then you're going to be merging Paramount Plus and Max, and they'll be selling all the Paramount Warner Brother
Well,
movies
that's
to
what I'm
another
saying.
streaming service.
Everybody is just, it's like everybody's eating each other.
Yeah.
It's like there is no one form factor of like healthy competition to the point where you're like, okay, no, clearly this person came up with a better idea and they deserve to exist before being bought out. And all of a sudden now it's just under one roof, only to either be sold to the highest bidder and then all of a sudden either be pilfered out and say, oh, well, we got what we needed. We wanted to just get rid of the competition, or, oh, we're going to use this until it's bled out and we realize there's nothing left in it anymore. And then it's hung out to dry.
This is really, I think, like the implosion of that mindset of too big to fail, and people believe that for so long.
Yes.
I mean, you look at like Walmart and Kroger in the 90s, and everybody's like,
I think
they're
you're
just
right.
they ruled the world. Disney in the 90s ruled the world. And it's like, now look, it's like when you become so huge that you think you can do nothing wrong and that people are just going to constantly consume everything you put out, no matter what you put out, and things start to fall in the cracks and you mismanage properties so poorly. I joked about Disney today, the rumor that they canceled another Star Wars movie, and it's like that would have made 6. It's like, how poorly mismanaged is this IP that should be making you billions that you can't even launch another movie? It's like you've started 5 different movies and scrapped them all because you have no idea what you're doing. And I think it's just that mindset of, we're so big, but now they're big. When you get that big, all eyes are on you, and now Disney knows that pressure. Amazon's learning that pressure. Warner Brother Discovery knows that pressure. All eyes are on us, and we no longer know how to make a profit, and that just makes the fall that much larger.
I think there's different reasons too that these when they get so big, like too big for their britches, kind of there. But there's also like with the instance of Disney, I think their issue isn't. I think it is partly that they've gobbled up all of those properties.
There's definitely moral issues too.
But
yeah.
I think their biggest issue is the internal struggle of, we want to still make good, wholesome content, but then we've got other people that have the control of the the ship that are
That they've given the reins
yeah.
to?
Yeah, well, we've got to pump all of these other like untraditional ideals and all of these new things into everything, and then it's like, well, no, that's. I think right now with the cancellations and stuff, you're seeing those ideals clash and start to rip each other apart. Whereas I feel like even just a couple of years ago, it was kind of like, I mean, you could slip anything into a Disney movie, and now they're starting to pull back on that. But you've also got executives and creatives and just regular old blue-collar workers that are like, no, we still want, you have to represent, and you have to have this in your films and all this. And I think
you can't.
They have to cancel everything because of it.
One, they're letting the nuts run the nut house.
Yes.
And ultimately, I think too that they've realized they've stepped in it too late.
Yes,
and
I don't think they've had any moral changes other than they know
realize
they
can't.
Wire.
Well, and they got caught on a hot mic and they can't back off. Mm-hmm. They realize they've put too many people in charge and at the helm that are making the decisions, and these are hills that they are willing to die on. And the Disney execs at the top of the chain are just trying to keep kosher. But the problem is now you have an enemy within and you have an enemy outside the gates. And it's like you can't ward off both. You have the consumer who's king, who's just not tuning in, and you're losing billions. And then you're willing to turn over because you have the immediate enemy right next to you that's willing to say, no, we're not backing off now. We've won and we're taking over.
Well, that's exactly
right.
And
I think it's the same exact problem that you have within, as you said, some of these other major corporations where they have bit off more than they can chew in terms of buying up competition or buying up pieces of property that they think are appealing in a given moment because they're popular, but maybe because they're so big and so massive, they're pulling the trigger too fast and too soon, only to realize that, look, I love how it's like Elon becomes public enemy number one. Mm-hmm. Because he buys out Twitter, and now it's a free space for everybody, free speech, and that's the enemy. That's the enemy of real democracy, so quote-unquote our corporate media tells us. But it's funny how they're willing to point the finger at him and put the target on his back because of what he did in terms of buying out X, and they say, well, look, he got had because he bought it for way more than it was worth, and it's failing. It's awful. None of them bring up all of these other huge major corporations like Amazon, like Disney,
that are also bleeding,
that are bleeding money hand over fist because of poor decisions they've made, because they know that it's at the sacrifice of the woke altar.
That's what I was going to say,
and that to them is worthy sacrifice, because then they can take a step back and stand on their holier ground of saying, but see, these are the principles we want them to put out there. It's worth sacrificing that short-term monetary loss for these values. But when Elon does it, buying up Twitter, changing it to X, and making it free and open for everybody, that's the devil. Can't do that. And look, you could tell he's the devil because he bought a stupid business deal and now he's bleeding cash.
But they say it's okay to lose this money for this moral cause until you are the executives in charge of these companies like Disney that realize, crap, our stockholders, our shareholders, they're not happy. That's who we ultimately have to report to. And they spent years firing the people that focused on quality and not agendas. We got rid of Lasseter from Pixar, got rid of Ike Perlmutter, got rid of Jeff Loeb. We fired all the people who weren't politically minded and kept the ones that did. And like Sean said, now you got the execs at the top. They're like, crap, we need to go back to not being politically focused, but all the people we kept, it's like, that's like you said.
No, it's like all the people you hired to make the content. The executives don't make the content.
Yeah.
Nope.
But all of your creatives are the crazy nutzos that are.
And like you said, now you have two enemies because it's like, well, we got rid of all the people that we need to right the ship, and we can either get rid of all these people now we make an enemy of them.
Just real quick, I would even argue too that to some degree, I don't even think a lot of the creatives are the nutsos. There's a lot out there.
Oh yeah.
But I think a lot of these people that are in these big companies came there to live out the dream that they had of working their dream job, whether it was at Amazon Studios, whether it was at Disney, wherever. And yet they're being told, well, here's the content you're supposed to make. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of well-intentioned people out there, whether they believe in the cause or not, that will continue to do their job because at the end of the day, they play it's not a small role, but it is small enough that they don't have to feel like they're one contributing to something they don't believe in,
Yeah.
or a lot of them don't care. They're like most of this country and apathetic to any kind of political cause, and they're just showing up because they're doing what they love day in and day out, and they get paid great money to do it, and they're working with some of the other best creative minds. I still believe a lot of these institutions have creative minds that are at the tip and top of the iceberg.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when they're being thrust into positions of creating things that, one, they have no passion behind, because let's face it, if you're forced into a situation, whether you're a creative person or not, or even just a hard worker, if you're being forced to do something that you ultimately don't like, you're not going to give it your best effort.
Yeah.
You're gonna slack off, or you're going to give it a half-assed, amount of effort. And I'm sorry, I think that's what we're seeing.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
And this is no defense for these people, but I do think that explains a little bit of your Kevin Feige's, your Pete Docter, your Dave Filoni, people who at the beginning, before things switched, everybody praised them for how passionate they were about Pixar, Marvel. Yeah, and they made amazing things. There's a reason everybody wanted Filoni in charge of Lucasfilm until recently. There's a reason everybody praised Feige until recently, and Pete Docter made some of the best Pixar movies we've seen. And it's like they all bowed. They all said, "We'll do whatever you want." And I do blame them for that, whether they agree with the message or not, and whether they say, oh, well, we want to make something like this, but Disney demands we make this. It's like, okay, that's still your fault for not saying, peace out, I can't be a part of this. If you really care about the property and you know it's not right, then you don't bend the knee.
Yeah,
Right.
but I feel like even just the point you just made, those names are people who were given positions on high. And I think that's one of the reasons that they bend the knee.
Yeah.
It's like
They
you
wanted
can
the power.
be the head of Marvel Studios
As
if
long
you
as you
bend
do
the
this.
knee.
Yeah.
You can be the head of
Oh,
Lucasfilm
absolutely.
as long as you bend the knee.
Well-
And they chose to do that instead of walk away.
Yeah.
And we've
Yeah.
seen that's come out in whether it's leaked Zoom meetings that happen within the departments
Yeah.
of these companies.
Yeah.
But even now, when we're seeing the backlash, I mean, these layoffs are a direct result of one, like you said. I think the issue of having to come to terms with, oh, we thought we were too big to fail, but now people are not buying in. They're not consuming this sort of content. We've got to pivot. We've got to come up with a new way in which our business model will succeed. And look, we're going to talk endlessly. We could talk endlessly
Yeah.
about the several different ways in which these companies can improve. One of the top things being of actually having a backbone and saying no to these woke crusaders, but also in terms of also not giving. I mean, look, there's so much content out there. I mean, it's hard enough for us to break the mold, to get out there, to be noticed on any kind of social platform, to build something from nothing. Even when you're a big company with the huge weight behind you, like Netflix or Amazon, it used to mean something when they started releasing their original content. Now stuff comes out all the time, blanketed with original on it, and I'm like, I have no clue if it's quality or not. It's just there because, oh, I'm a subscriber, and because of that, this gets thrown in. And then I think that to me is the biggest tell-all here. You could at least say, well, Amazon, that's a great value. You pay a year for Amazon Prime. You get Prime Video. It's included. It's one of the benefits that I get with all of this extra added value that I'm paying for yearly. Oh, but by the way, now because we're bleeding some money, that value doesn't go as far because we funded things like Rings of Pooh that nobody watched, and we spent $1 billion on it, $1 billion debacle.
Man, they're putting people in space.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, why don't you keep us here on Earth and put the money into your company and not, putting rich people in a floating penis?
That does look like a penis. It really does. But no, I think it's interesting that you see these companies now trying to get even more money out of you from what you've already paid, because it was valuable enough, or it was the value you got, the extra added value you got for paying your hard-earned money to them. But now suddenly that's not included. You need to pay a little bit more extra, otherwise we got to subsidize it with ads.
Well, I mean, the world we're living in today, nothing you purchase are you getting bang for your buck.
You don't even own it anymore.
No, that's true. You just rent it.
Digital
No,
is,
but I'm just
that's
saying,
exactly
like,
where I think
even
this
when you
is-
buy, like,
yeah.
even, I mean, we're talking about some of the equipment that you have in the room right now, and it's like, when you spend that much money, it ought to freaking work.
It should last.
And it's like, even now, I mean, I hate to say it, but even buying American made doesn't mean much anymore.
No, because we
And-
got DEI initiatives.
Yeah, yeah. But it's just, I think when it comes to anything that you purchase nowadays, or even rent, like there's no bank, you're not getting. You can spend more and still get the crappy quality or the crappy product. And I feel like that it wasn't that way 20 years ago.
No.
Like you spent more money 20 years ago on, you know, a Panasonic VCR. Well, 40 years ago, you spent, you know, $600 on a Panasonic. You were getting a better VCR than the RCA from Walmart.
The
And
RCA was garbage.
Now you can go to Walmart and buy $100 Vizio TV that lasts longer than your, I'm not going to say Samsung because Samsung's still the boss,
It
but it lasts
lasts.
longer than your Sony TV.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really insane. Like, there's just, I don't know. I feel like
But
your
you
dollar
know,
doesn't go as far anymore.
4
And it's the
years
same
ago, when
way
you
with-
bought a VCR and a VHS, you had those for as long as the VHS didn't fall apart, because eventually over time the tape would.
Right. You could wear them out.
Well, but even still, I think to go back to, I mean, DVDs, same way. I
Yeah.
mean, that was kind of, that's
It was
kind of
still something physical you owned. It's not like Ubisoft, who recently was just saying gamers just need to get used to not owning their own, like digital
look,
games.
yeah.
Are just, you know, it's just,
this has
it's what
become
it is.
the new, you know, the new push is you'll
Yeah.
own nothing and you'll be happy.
Yeah.
Because
That's
again,
that's the reset.
Yeah.
Play
And-
PlayStation
great
Plus
reset.
$160 a year, and then when you don't want to pay it anymore, well, so long to all those games. You can't touch them
like,
anymore.
That's the World Economic
Yeah.
Forum. That's what
That's
they
it.
want.
Yeah.
They want you to. They don't want you to own property. They want you to lease property from the government.
Right.
And that way, it's, you know, you can.
Well, you just live your
Yeah.
life. You
Yeah.
just live your life, and you get to be happy.
But if
going
they
from
want
this thing
to-
well, and look,
take it away from you. They can anytime.
we've been elated at accepting certain things that have come with this as a norm. I mean, but I think where we're now starting to have our backs up against the wall, and we've reached a precipice here, is in that the digital age was supposed to usher in a way in which you create these, you know, you create this. I mean, I remember Steve Jobs talking about it on stage, promoting the iMac, and it was like, you'll have your digital life. It'll be right here on this machine. And it was like, that was the idea of the cloud when it came out. It's like, you have ways in which you can store this data, but it's like, it's not lost. It's not just out there.
It's
in
meant so you could keep it
Yeah, right.
forever.
And-
Now they're
and
like, you
that's-
can't keep anything.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's funny because at the what they're all positioning is that at the at the not the risk, at the joy and the ease of, you know, immediate gratification, and the you know, that digital, you know, you can immediately buy something digital and have it downloaded instantly. It's like that ease of use and that ease of getting it right then, right now is. You're going to morph into this idea of, well, I mean, that's all I need. I need my fix, and then I'll move on.
Well, again, it's giving up freedoms for comfort and security. It's,
false
yeah,
sense
false,
of-
yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this is more convenient. Like, why do you need to own anything? Why do you need to be in charge of anything? Just let everyone else do it for you, and just be a vegetable and keep paying us money, and you don't have to live a life.
Right.
Not a real one.
And exactly. It is the false sense of you could, again, the idea that work and responsibility towards things
Those
that
are
you,
evil.
well, no, work isn't. They embrace it. But what are you working towards? And where at least the purpose of work used to be that you would build up your nest egg, you would have enough to survive and be responsible on your own, so that you had more choices at your disposal to embrace that freedom. But freedom came with responsibility. It wasn't just so you could be, you know, live a debaucherous lifestyle.
Right.
That's not freedom. That's a slave to sin. But in this instance, when you're talking about, you know, these corporations, these mega corporations, you're getting far fewer because they're eating up their competition, or they're what is the word I'm trying to think of? I can't think of it. They're it's like they're buying them out, and they're I'm gonna come up with it. I'm at a loss for words tonight. And I'm gonna
Cannibalism?
It's okay.
Well, that's one word to put it. Yeah, they cannibalize their competition.
Well, and it's not even that I think they're just like buying each other out because they've gotten so successful. It's because they're all failing, and the only way they can survive is by.
I don't know. I think that's a little too
I
too
look
big
at it like
picturesque.
you've always said, like as somebody who runs a business, like you've got to be amoral. You've got to kind of stay out of.
Yeah.
It's a business decision. It's not personal. It's not ideological. And I think like Disney buying Star Wars, for instance, business-wise, I think that could have been a really good business deal. Mm-hmm. I think if they would have let Star Wars sit for a decade.
Acquired.
And
that was the word I was thinking of.
Acquired, yeah. If they would have bought Lucasfilm and let it set for 10 years and then let people's anticipation build and the want build and then do something good, it would have been fine. But so I don't necessarily see the failure of their business being that they're getting too big and they're gobbling up too much. I think some of that is they're having to do that to make up for loss elsewhere. But I feel like some of it's good business deals. Mm-hmm. It's just the loss is coming because of their ideologies.
Execution.
I agree.
And the woke mind virus and everything.
And you're right. 10, 15 years ago, I would have agreed. I did. I said businesses should be
after
amoral.
Marvel. We were excited that Disney bought Star Wars. We were like, oh, they're going to do what Star Wars.
I mean businesses in general.
Oh yeah.
I would say that I would agree with that statement of it needs to be amoral. The problem is
absolutely
when you're in the culture war that we're in now.
Yeah.
And you have corporations being pressed upon to fall in line with certain, again, DEI initiatives, with certain World Economic Forum initiatives. When you have these major companies being pressured by the government, depending on who's in power, to, basically, again, put their foot down and say, you got to do things this way or else. Yeah. That's not coercion. That's not convincing me. Or it is. It's coercion. It's not convincing. And it's to me, that's the issue we're running into, where I don't think you, as a business, stand a chance that if you don't have a backbone to put your foot down and say, okay, there are certain lines I won't cross.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I'm pro-business. I'm not pro-big business. And to me, that's a fine line to draw, because far too many businesses are gobbled up or acquired by these bigger conglomerates.
Merged.
But and look, I'm not saying it's, I'm not pointing the finger at the little guy who he put in the hard day's work and he built his business to the point where it
was worth something.
It's looked upon to be bought up by these big guys. I'm not saying that at all. I understand economically why they do it, and they're putting their legacy for their family intact. That makes sense that that's in their that's not in their rear view, that's in their front view mirror. But for me, as far as going ahead, I'm like, we don't have a chance anymore unless we take it to, the reason why it's almost somewhat liberating to see these companies in this situation is because, like you said, Keith, I think they finally are starting to learn that they're too big to fail is not a myth.
Yeah.
That they're getting to a point where they have, when the rubber meets the road, you have to still provide something that the consumer wants. And if they don't want it, well, then somebody's got to pay.
And like Sean said, I do think they're also learning that you have to be they used to know that lesson. That was something that...
I was going to say, that line that Brandon's talking about, I don't think that line used to be there.
No.
I think it was just common sense. And I think like even a company like Bud Light, I think they
learned it hard.
That's what I'm saying, though. If they would have looked at this Dylan Mulvaney issue from a business perspective and said, if we throw our bunch in, our apples in that basket, we could be making a bad business decision because we're taking a side. We don't want to take a side. We want to just give our beer to anybody.
Yep.
And it's like, if they would have thought about that and made that would have been a better business decision, but they didn't. They thought about, this is trending. This person is on everybody's TikTok feed. So let's throw our apples in that basket, and it was a poor business decision.
Like Brandon said, making that sacrifice at that moral altar. It's they no longer But
they could have evaded all of that, and people, rednecks would still be drinking Bud Light instead of throwing their beer away and shooting it with shotguns because of one poor decision ideologically.
Yep.
And if they would have just thought about it from a straight business perspective, they would have never done it.
That was that was part of Ike Perlmutter's parting words with Bob Iger before they let him go as head of Marvel, and he was like, "Look, you're dabbling way too much into politics and agendas because he said business should be amoral, and they gave him the boot anyway.
And one of the biggest, and I thought this was something that was going to take, it did take the world by storm. But I saw this back when I was in college, and I praised this company, and my good buddy Logan, our good friend Logan, he praised it too. Yeah. But I thought this is going to change the game in the way in which companies work within the community. But it was Tom's, and they had this brilliant plan of, buy a pair of shoes, give a pair to a kid in need, and it was this ingenious, philanthropic type message that I have a genuine good feeling in my heart that I'm helping out a kid in need. When I buy a pair of shoes, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
And while the sentiment isn't necessarily bad, you could argue morally, are you doing it for selfish reasons? Okay, fine. That's a you and God issue.
Right.
But ultimately, if it is providing a pair of shoes to a kid in need, hey, great. Awesome. Good business strategy. Great marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day,
it's great salesmanship.
Well, that's the thing. When every company jumps on that bandwagon, and now your purpose is solely not what the business is, but it becomes, we need to have this philanthropic message, or we need to have this ideological message.
Like, was it Skechers that had Bob's?
Yes, they tried Bob's.
Bob's, yeah.
But it's like so many of these failures, I think, come from when we shifted from this, a business is a business to make money. That's it. If you're making money, you're providing a good and a service to the public that they're willing to pay for, and that's how your business grows. That's how you know you're doing good. To morph into, now we have to have a social cause.
Yep.
We got to have a media outlet. We got to have a presence where we're in, and people are going to buy our stuff just because we have this message, even though what we may be selling is junk or crap. I mean, if there's anything to be said about Amazon, which is the king and has taken over Walmart's reign of being able to get anything at any time when you want it, but it's like that's its bread and butter. That's what they live on.
Yeah.
Throwing in the Amazon Prime, so all of the rest of this is just, like you said, going to space in penis ships. It's like that's all just it's the tip of the iceberg,
it's like,
or it's the cherry on
it's
top.
Like Dr. Evil's spaceship,
the big boy.
Yeah.
It's something stupid.
But all of this in the movies and the shows, yes, politics is downstream of culture, but even in these cultural moments, we're realizing that when you just put out garbage or crap, or even when it's just dribbled to the point of it's all about the message and not about substance at all, you're detached. Nobody's buying it. Nobody is consuming it. And it's like there's all this content out there that is just waste. It's just garbage. How could anybody sift through it and say, well, this is worthwhile?
Yeah.
And so I think they're just finally, when you see these layoffs happen at all these major corporations, it's because not only just that they bit off more than they can chew, but for quite some time now,
they've stopped being a business.
They've stopped being a business. They've stopped providing what the customer wants.
Yep.
And now, the chickens are coming home to roost, and they're having to pay the price.
And we could go on and on.
We could.
Yeah,
we have.
I say,
we got way
13.
I would say there's more stuff I could say, but I think we've said enough.
We went on for probably like 40, 45 minutes.
I think we've said enough.
That was more. I wanted to talk about Jesus and Scorsese, but I guess we're not getting there.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to. I just
the rumors
hope that
Daniel
happen.
Day-Lewis is going to
Could you believe
Jesus.
That?
Yeah, I don't think so. I looked up where he gave because he was there at the Emmys and they joked. So I don't think so.
I was just thinking the fact that he's a method actor.
Yeah.
What if he really thinks he's Jesus?
He would he would want everybody to treat him like Jesus.
That's what I'm saying. He'd have disciples
and that'd
following
be
him
so
around
sacrilegious.
and
Let's take him out on a boat and let him walk on water.
And then when he sinks, you just drive off without him.
Say,
See
all right,
like,
come on.
He'll do the Sermon on the Mount up on the Hollywood Hill with the sign and everything. Like, come to me.
I hate to say it, but if he is, or whoever Scorsese gets to play Jesus, Jim Caviezel's still Jesus.
That's right.
I mean, we're waiting on we're waiting on Mel Gibson.
It's going to be DiCaprio.
We're waiting on the
guys.
resurrection, guys.
It's
Come on.
Scorsese, so it's going to be DiCaprio, who is also a method actor. So hey,
he would be the worst. He'd be the worst Jesus.
It's like, okay, now that you mentioned DiCaprio, I think I would trust Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes, I would pick him well over DiCaprio.
There's just things Scorsese
Daniel
said that makes me
like,
nervous.
There will be blood.
Yeah.
Or in Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
I mean, he was Lincoln.
True.
He was Lincoln.
He was a savior in that
just-
movie.
Like I said,
Our
I'll
nation.
leave it at this. There's things Scorsese said that makes me nervous, and we'll see what happens. Though.
I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, there was the.
I do want Top Gun 3 though. I'm okay with
It's-
that.
that.
I'd like for them to wait a little while, but
Yeah, I don't.
I
need
think
it.
it's too soon.
I
Look,
agree.
We know the trouble Paramount's in, and
Oh, yeah.
the fact that Paramount is already quickly greenlighting this. I'm just like,
they want money.
I trust Tom Cruise
that's
because
that's the only thing
he's been the only thing that has been worth
Same
seeing.
people that made Top Gun Maverick are still involved, and that's all I have hope for.
Yeah,
So.
but they just had such a long time to let it set and settle.
know,
to
I agree.
make
And even Tom
Maverick
Cruise
so-
said that's why it worked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was because of how long.
Well, it's another Star
Yeah.
Wars thing. It's like we don't need to be constantly churned out and have. Sometimes it's good to let things settle.
Yeah, I mean, Episode 7 dropped, and then right after that, it just worked.
Well, you could tell they had
I mean,
no-
other than Rogue One,
They had no plan. They had no plan.
no. All right, so yeah, Top Gun 3 in the works. Jennifer Lawrence as Jesus. That was a meme
That's
that was
JL,
floating
not-
around.
It
I
happened.
fell for it.
It happened.
I fell for it.
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker, but that apparently is not true.
No, it's not her. It's
It was
Daniel
to ruff-
Day-Lewis.
It was to ruffle
I thought that
feathers.
one was a joke too when I saw it today. I was just like,
well,
that's
it's
got to
still
be a joke too.
It's still like there's
It's
no
a meme of a meme.
concrete.
I love that we
yet,
just
so-
crammed two major headlines into like 5 minutes.
We
Yeah.
did.
All right, let's move
Yeah.
into our multimedia segment.
Multimedia.
Multimedia.
All right, get it out there, Keith. I like that. That was from Geeks. Was it
Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds? That's it. Yeah, just Geeks. Are you not entertained? We got our multimedia segment, and that is your favorite movie to watch with someone else.
Any movie that
Any movie.
it's that's what I say. Any movie.
I got
like,
different
it's-
situations.
Oh,
It
you
did it.
say it. You're
Yeah.
literally saying
and
any
it
movie.
really is. It depends because I get excited about a movie, but then I'll be like, well, Miranda won't give a crap about that. My parents won't give a crap about that. Brandon and Sean might. It kind of depends. Like Lord of the Rings. It's like Return of the King is the movie I would want to watch with anybody, but I also know that there's going to be people like Sean with Amelia. It's like Amelia don't want to sit down and watch.
she don't
Return of the
appreciate
King.
it. No, I need to sit there and watch that with people that appreciate it.
Yes.
like
See,
me.
and that would
Yes.
actually that would ruin it because if I'm sitting with somebody who doesn't
Doesn't
appreciate that,
appreciate
shit,
it. Yeah, I'd be
it's
like, watch-
it would
Yeah.
break my heart.
Like my sister will be on her
Amelia's
phone.
just like, why are you
like,
crying?
Oh,
the
yeah,
entire-
no, you can't do that.
And that's and even things she likes, she'll be, and I'm just like, I don't like stop it, pay attention.
Yeah, I
this
can't
is
do
an
that.
epic moment.
Yep.
It's like you got like a heart pounding, like a moment that wants to make you shed a tear, and you
Yep.
look over and the person's just on their phone, and I'm just like,
Honestly-
well, you've ruined the whole experience now.
Even if I'm binging and I will watch something, the moment I pick up my phone and I start scrolling through
it's over.
Instagram or Twitter or something, I'm just like, I need to stop watching. Because I'm distracted.
Yeah.
And that's just not right. I can't do that. That's wrong. Because then it's just like, that's my own bad habit. And it's also, it reminds me of how freaking, because
Inundated we are with
well, just because
technology.
we've got these freaking devices
Oh, it's
in our hands
addictive.
now. We're our entire, oh gosh, I cannot speak tonight. Our attention span. That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, everybody
So
has
freaking
everybody
short
has
anymore.
ADHD now because
Yeah.
it's like you're watching a movie and
We're
then you
engineered to
and you
have
see
it.
something, you're like, oh, I wonder if that's true, or I wonder if that would really happen, and then you get on
Yeah,
your
we
phone.
do it in the movie theater
Yeah.
when we're watching a
Yeah.
movie. We're just like, where?
And then
what
you go
movie
down
did
a
I see that
rabbit
guy
hole.
in?
Yep.
Then you
Let me
gotta-
pull up
I have
IMDb.
to look now.
Yep.
Oh, my
Or-
wife and I do that all the
But-
time. We're
but-
watching shows, and it's just like I've seen her in something before, and it's like, let me get my phone.
And the reason I gotta
Then you
look
spend
now,
20 minutes on it.
but
Off
here's
for
the
half
reason.
movie.
The reason I gotta look now is because I'll forget.
yeah, absolutely.
I'll forget the moment the movie's over, and I'll be
But
like,
maybe
what
that's
was I
okay.
thinking of?
Do you really need to know if that actress was in some other movie you saw? No.
Yes.
I do.
You want,
it
you want
eats
to.
at me.
You want
it
to.
eats at
but
me. Yeah.
but once the movie's over, you've forgotten it's not eating at you. It eats you the moment because again, it's
Yeah.
at our fingertips. We know we can look it up right away. When at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. But
No, because see, I claim to be a movie buff, and if I'm gonna maintain that title,
That's right.
I have to stay sharp on this stuff. I have to remember what I've seen that person in.
Gotta know.
I gotta know.
It's right at my fingertips.
it's
I gotta
because
know.
I used to be able to do that just because I watched so many movies, and you would see like in the credits, like Bub Asman or I can't even think. Tak Fujimoto. Like there were certain people that I would see their names so much I learned it, and I used to not have to be like, oh, who's it? Like I just because I want. And now it's like again, there's so much going on that our attention span's so small that now I have to be like, who is that?
I'm like Keith though. There's movies that I think like. I would have a favorite movie that I would like to watch at the lake when we're sitting around being stupid. And I have a favorite movie that I like to watch with my spouse. I have a favorite movie that I would like to watch with my kids. Like,
we all know The Room.
Different things.
The Room. Tommy Wiseau.
The Room. Yes, that's a good one.
That's one of my favorite movies to watch.
That's
with other people.
That's the reigning film right now for the lake. And
that's
we
true.
watch it every year.
Yeah, well, we watch it more than once. That's what's funny is like sometimes you watch it twice.
It's fun to watch. I don't know because I mean that's a movie I would definitely watch with you guys anytime. Because I don't know.
I like the Ten Commandments. That's one of that, and I like
with my dad.
I like to watch it with when my wife is around, just simply because I know all the words to the movie. It's 4 hours long, and I know every single word Charlton Heston's going to say, and I say it out loud during the movie, and it really ticks her off.
Yeah. What is she to you?
Doing it.
An old woman. Yeah, I love that. It's so good. No, I agree. To me, I don't want to. Maybe I made up the topic, so I feel like I should pick one. But I was going to cop out and say a genre that I like to watch. Again, it depends on the crowd. With you all, would be definitely comedy.
Oh yeah,
I love to watch anything that we can laugh at. Obviously. I haven't really experienced the whole like, oh, let's watch a scary movie with like a girl and then like she wants to cuddle up with you.
Watching horror movies with other people is more fun too because you get the react, especially in the theater.
True. Yeah, the theater.
Like Paranormal Activity was so much more fun than watching it by yourself in a basement because then you're just terrified.
No, you're right though because even the reaction of others, it makes you tense.
I think horror and comedy both are two that are a lot more fun with other people because you get to jump with other people and see the reactions with other people.
Okay, so we're down to a genre.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You did say Lord of the Rings, Keith, so you're good. Sean, what about you? Do you have any kind of movie that stands out that you would watch with someone else?
I mean,
you said Ten Commandments, but
yeah, that was joking. I mean, that's just because it irritates my wife. But like, I mean, with my wife. We if we can agree on a rom-com, like when we were doing the rom-coms for around Christmas, watching Sleepless in Seattle with her, we both enjoyed that movie. That's another movie I know all the words to. Can't help it. It's guilty pleasure.
It's a good movie.
But yes, it's like we can sit and enjoy those movies together. But I mean, I didn't even think about the theater, and now that I'm thinking about it, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. But I've never experienced anything in a crowd of people like the end of Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When Doctor Strange's portal opens and Captain or Falcon says on your 6 or
on your left,
your left.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
and everybody gasped and all that, and I was just like, when I think of that now, I've never had that kind of an experience in a movie theater, and I watch YouTube videos of other theaters.
I did that just recently.
Every theater people
and I get that all over again when they cheer and stuff. That's one of the, I would say, ultimately.
I'm getting chills now.
I'm just going to go ahead and say my favorite film to watch with a crowd of people was that movie.
Yes.
I've never experienced anything like that in my life.
When he says Avengers symbol,
and everybody blows up, like, yes. And when I watch it,
as soon as he says, I am Iron Man.
Yeah.
Several of them.
Yeah, there's so many things, but
just when Thor shows up in Infinity War and everybody cheers, Captain first shows up.
And they want to know why we're so critical of Marvel now.
Yeah.
That was the top of your game. That's what you had.
You gave me that.
Yep.
And then now you give me the Marvels.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awful.
Yes.
Yep. Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a lot of those experiences in the theater with you all is fun. I will admit that.
Yeah,
when we're going to see those movies, just because I know how we'll react to most of them, especially when we can laugh at them, and they're not supposed to be funny.
The last moment we've had like that, and it wasn't even as close, and it's only because of the nostalgia, was Spider-Man. Like that nostalgia got everybody.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but
as soon as you see even just when you see
Toby, but Andrew.
When you see Andrew Garfield in the
when
hall,
you see Andrew
alley,
Garfield, you know immediately Toby's coming.
Yeah,
you know he's coming, and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, but even that, it's like when he jumps through the portal into the kit and the dining room. you know by his suit that's the Sony Spider or the
I love that
the
because they had him
yeah.
mask and everybody's like, is it? It has to be because that's
but
the amazing
you know
suit.
his costume.
Yeah.
Yep. And the things they got right.
Yeah.
That when they got it right, they got it right.
Yeah.
But no, I will agree. Anything like that. I mean, honestly, a lot. I go back to almost all the midnight releases that we've seen, whether it be The Hobbit, whether it was Episode 7, whether it was Interstellar. I remember seeing that with you all
that was a good one.
For midnight release. I mean, when they actually used to have legitimate midnight releases before they started releasing them on Thursdays. And it was an experience because you knew the people that were there at the theater we were all hyped and we were all on the same page. Like we were all going to experience it together. Yeah. And it felt like you were the first ones ever to see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those types of movies by far, but I mean, even like family movies.
I watch dramas by myself more than with somebody else.
Same.
And that's just because there's a lot of films out there that get me emotionally.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't it's not that I don't want to experience those emotions in front of somebody else. It's just, usually I watch those later at night and people are asleep and it's just
you can
I don't
cry
know.
in peace.
Yeah. I don't know why I choose to watch them, but it's like usually it's like I'll watch a movie and then I'll just be like, man, that hit hard. But
I was gonna say, I think it's because it hits you differently too when you're alone.
Yeah.
Like I felt that
I'm
way
in my
with
thoughts when I'm alone.
Yeah.
You're more introspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, when you're watching a movie and it gets to those moments, it's just like, it hits you harder. But yeah, no, I would say I didn't really settle on a movie. I just came down to genres, but those are my genres.
I think anything that you just love passionately and you think someone else is going to love, you're going to be excited about sharing it with them. So
yeah.
Very true.
I think you all are my favorite people to watch movies with.
Oh,
just because I know if we're on the same page, which we usually are in a movie, it's like if I'm crying, you all are getting ready to tear up too. If I'm laughing at something that was just so stupid, I can look over and I know you all are laughing too. It's like I'm not the only person laughing at how bad that was.
Yeah.
Well, that's
like,
the thing.
I
Even
don't know.
when we disagree and we walk out of the theater and we have differences of opinions, I just like that when we're hashing it out.
Oh yeah,
and it's just
like Godzilla.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I wouldn't have wanted to go see that with anybody else.
I
hated it.
I forget what it was. Where I think it was like Gran Turismo or something, and I liked the movie way more than I expected. But there was some movie we walked out of the theater, and I think I was way harsher on it.
Oppenheimer.
It was Oppenheimer.
You were much harder.
Yeah,
because we saw that with
true.
Jacob, and me, Sean, and Jacob liked it a lot more than you did.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That was enough. But I was actually glad. I would like. It's funny because it's nice to get the first reaction walking into the theater, seeing something like that.
Yeah.
With people that you...
I think we were caught off guard because you're a huge Nolan fan, and it was like, wow, he didn't like that.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm still...
Yeah.
It's funny because, and I'll end on this, I'm skeptical. I do not want to watch it again so soon after. Mm-hmm. I just feel like I'm still going to not like it. And I do want to revisit it.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's still too soon.
I don't want to watch it until after Oscar hype dies down because I know it's going to be nominated. I know it's going to be hyped up. And the more they hype it up, the more I'm going to be like, okay, guys, it wasn't that freaking amazing. Like he's
right
for him to get so many awards notice for this movie when he's had better movies and like because I do like Oppenheimer.
It's like Scorsese in The Departed.
I was bored to death when I watched it with Amelia. We watched it the 4K version or whatever, and I was, and so was she.
You already knew
she
everything
was too,
coming.
but I was bored to death because I just think it was partly I think it was because I knew, but also I think it was one of those films that you don't see it unless you see it in theaters.
Yeah,
like unless you see that on IMAX and feel the sound and see the spectacle on that huge screen.
True.
Like I just, even as big as my TV is at home, like, and I have surround sound and all that stuff, it did not match.
It didn't do
and it didn't. Yeah, it didn't hold me the way it did in theaters.
I can see that.
I think it was.
I think I'm in the same boat because I remember Tenet came out and I was feeling lukewarm about it when we came to the theater, but I liked it. And then when it came out on 4K, I had my parents, like, I asked for it for Christmas. They got it. I watched it again, and it's like I have tried to like that movie.
I don't understand it. Here's
the thing.
So that's why
it's not as well thought out.
It's like The Arrival,
and it's
for
not
me.
as deep as you think.
It's really not.
Man, Arrival. Arrival's a favorite movie of mine to watch with anybody. I love that movie. It's so good. So amazing.
Arrival's deeper than Tenet, and Arrival's not that deep either.
I'll willingly admit that.
Yeah.
But it's just like I tried with Tenet, so then I think when I saw Oppenheimer, it's not that left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, okay, I'm going to let that set.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait for time to pass. I'll revisit it, see what I think walking away from it for quite a while, and see what I think about it after another viewing. But I have
the Nolan.
Didn't really stick with me on that one.
No, I have the Nolan collection in 4K, and that came out before Tenet, so that one's not in there. And I just don't plan on ever getting Tenet in 4K because I just don't care.
You don't need to. You don't need to.
It's one that I think it tries to fool you into thinking it's deeper than it really is. It's
True.
not.
And I think he was trying to do something not more mentally challenging or intellectually stimulating. I think he was just focused more on he always tries to do something unique with film and how it's, just like even with even Dunkirk and the way time is manipulated.
Yeah.
He does something that's unique that makes you, because he started out all the way back with Memento, and it makes sense. I like what he does, but he's always trying to think outside the box so that it is unique, and I give him credit there. And I think that's why even Oppenheimer is such a departure from that, and people were willing to see,
straightforward.
It's
movie.
straightforward historical drama. I'm like, okay, well, they were a little bit more interested of, can Nolan handle this without some kind of shtick?
I think he needs to take a slight break because when you look at, he had Batman and then Inception, then Dark Knight, and then Interstellar, and even though those were one right after another, there's still a change of pace where he had like the superhero
different
idea,
genres,
and then jumped to, and then since the Dark Knight trilogy ended, he's just kept trying to do these creative things, and now we're going on a Nolan train.
Yeah, we need that. We're done.
We're done. Yeah, I don't need to go into Nolan. It's 10:35. We got
to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for watching and viewing out there. Don't know if we haven't been able to see if Rumble's been a hit or not, but hey, we're going to keep trying it every week. We're going to be on there. We're going to keep hitting the hitting the milestones as we can week to week here on the Red Moon Podcast. Oh, I threw this up early.
Oh God.
I'm gonna say it, and then I'll throw up the social media, and then I'll let Keith say this one again. You can email us at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com, or
don't like it.
Like, share, subscribe on all of our social media accounts right there at the bottom of your screen. That's right. Red Moon Book on Facebook, Red Moon Tweet on X, Red Moon Pics on Instagram, and of course Red Moon Productions on YouTube. YouTube and Rumble. Sorry.
We need to end this show.
Yeah, we need to end this show. I can't speak. I'm tired. But yeah, search for us on Rumble and subscribe there. It's great. Yeah, we're live on there, hopefully still. But going back to the old-fashioned way of reaching out to us, Keith, yes.
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
It's beautiful. Shiver up my leg every time. All righty, guys. That's going to do it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Mikrak Johansson.
He remembered. So odd you remembered that one.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.